Welcome back to this week's episode of Motorsport Podcast. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Mike.
And we are here to talk about a historical race that had, I think, a lasting change basically implemented in terms of F1. And we are going to talk about the 2005 United States Grand Prix.
In Indianapolis.
In Indianapolis, Indiana.
Yeah.
So, obviously, we don't have a race there anymore. I think for a number of reasons. But we will go through that. Okay. So, the 2005 United States Grand Prix was a Formula One race held on June 19th, 2005 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And it was the 9th race of the season.
Yeah.
So, this particular race is one of the most infamous races in motorsport history. And I think it helped shaped modern Formula One into what it is today. So for a bit of context, at this time period, there were two tire suppliers, Michelin and Bridgestone. And today we obviously only have one, Pirelli. Mm-hmm. So what started out like any normal qualifying session quickly turned into utter chaos when it was discovered that the Michelin tires couldn't withstand race pace for more than 10 laps. And it wasn't just a matter of losing race pace. No, they were exploding on track. The problem specifically impacted the left rear tire during turn 13, which was just before the main straight.
Right.
So it's believed that Michelin may have not properly accounted for the grooves cut into the track to improve grip for Indy cars, because obviously that track is famous for Indy.
Right. So the track had been resurfaced.
Yes, after the track had been resurfaced.
In between the seasons of 2004, 2005, and they did that diamond cutting, which is the grooving that you're talking about, which they did not account for.
So Indy cars have smaller downforce generating wings and need more grip for their tires than Formula One cars do. So this was not accounted for by Michelin. So the FIA refused a compromise proposal from Michelin to allow a chicane to be installed, maintaining that such rule changes would be grossly unfair to the Bridgestone teams who had come prepared with properly working tires. Like, what a burn.
You didn't bring the right parts. Too bad.
Too bad for you. We don't care that it's unsafe. Deal with it. And that last minute changes to the track layout could potentially cause crashes, which also exploding tires.
I mean, yeah.
Same deal. So the Michelin teams, unable to come to a compromise with the FIA, decided not to participate. It was later stated that the Michelin teams could have potentially exposed themselves to criminal liability under Indiana state law had they competed.
Oh.
I guess because they knew, obviously, of the inherent risks.
They knew it would be unsafe?
Yeah. And if you watch videos from that time, like there was like a whole FIA meeting with all the team principals, and like they tried to come to some sort of resolution with this. I think nobody really obviously wanted it to come to this, but
yeah. So I did a bit of a deep dive into this.
I'm not done.
Oh, my bad. Keep going.
I might cover it. So, okay. So Bridgestone, the other tire manufacturer, did not have similar problems. It's rumored that their U.S. subsidiary Firestone, who supplied tires for an IndyCar race after the resurfacing, may have sent information back to their Formula One tires department in Japan. So the three teams running Bridgestone tires, Ferrari, Jordan, and Minardi, were able to compete without any safety concerns. The remaining 14 entrants, all using Michelin tires, completed the formation lap but retired to the pit lane before the race started. It's a crazy video to watch. Like if you have some time, YouTube it.
Yeah.
It's just a wild time in Formula One. So of the 6 competitors, Ferrari's Michael Schumacher was the eventual winner, with his teammate Rubens Barrichello finishing second, and Jordan driver Thiago Monteiro finishing third, which would be his only podium in Formula One, as well as the last podium for Jordan. The result moved Schumacher to third in the Drivers' Championship. No driver above him in Drivers' Championship points took part in the race.
Ooh.
So,
and I mean, that was Schumacher's only win of that season, too.
That is information I did not have. The situation created enormously negative publicity for the sport of Formula One, especially in the U.S., a market in which Formula One had struggled to establish itself over the preceding 20 years. like fans were enraged because obviously who wants to watch 6 cars compete? Like it was.
So I watched this several times when you told me you wanted to talk about this race, and you can hear the boos.
Oh yeah, they're going nuts.
It is. Yeah. And like
rightfully so. You've spent a lot of money to go see a race, and you don't expect. Like I understand sometimes you've got weather incidences where that's out of everyone's hands, but the FIA didn't seem to try to come to a resolution on this. They were kind of just like, no. So a little bit of context for this. In 2004, there was 2 serious accidents caused by Michelin tire failures. First, Fernando Alonso, I'm saying Fernando like we're besties, crashed in the barriers alongside the end of the pit straight on lap 9. And then this one is actually the more serious one. Ralf Schumacher's Williams suffered the same fate, but in the most dangerous part of the track, causing him to hit a wall at a 90-degree angle rearwards. And the impact left Schumacher with spinal fractures and a concussion, which prevented him from racing until the 2004 Chinese Grand Prix 3 months later. So, I guess...
Pretty serious incidents.
Pretty serious incidents. And like, you have to kind of wonder what Michelin was thinking. Like, and I don't know. You just look at how involved Pirelli is now in their guidance around how many laps tires are going to last and all of that. And I think they're consulted so often. And I don't know if this was just a time where that wasn't the case, but you would think with 2 serious crashes happening the year before that there would have been some consideration about like why that would have happened. And then it seemed like the problem got worse.
Well, yeah. And I think Michelin focused solely that year on being faster, which as they should.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why all those other teams were on Michelin tires.
Yeah.
They had chosen those and they were performing better than the Bridgestone ones. But I mean, really, Michelin just didn't do their homework. It wasn't a secret that they had relayed the track and they had done the diamond cutting or whatever you want to call it. Indy had been racing on that track and on a similar track for months. So there was information. Like, did Firestone give the parent Bridgestone more information? Sure, I would bet that they did.
Yeah.
Right? That just makes sense.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
But the information's there. There is months worth of racing in other series that they can look at. Sure, it's not exactly apples to apples, but it's, apple to... It's
important to factor in that information. So Michelin withdrew from Formula One at the end of the 2006 season.
Yeah.
And they announced their decision to withdraw from Formula One at the end of December 2005, stating they would not extend their involvement beyond the 2006 season. And it was partially influenced by their strained relationship with the FIA.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
Totally. Pirelli became the sole tire supplier in Formula One in 2011. They replaced Bridgestone, who had been the supplier since 2007 after Michelin withdrew. And their current contract extends through the 2027 season. So, Tiregate.
Yeah, man. I think it's interesting because there had been a lot of what they called tire wars before that, and as you said, I think this really was the catalyst of change for FIA to just be like, no, one tire supplier, we're taking this out of it.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where, because you can see the catastrophic consequences of a tire failure.
Yeah.
And at least if they have, I think, reliable data, which they seem to have with Pirelli, of how long they think something's going to last. And, they give their guidance around what each tire compound is going to last at that particular track. I think it normalizes it a lot more. And there's so many different things that they can change on a car that I think that it makes sense just to standardize this one thing. So important to note that this race didn't have a massive impact on the I mean, it obviously had an impact because you took that many cars out of the race. Fernando Alonso still won the 2005 championship with Renault. So it's interesting though, because I think now if something like this had happened even in the last, 2 years, it would have had massive consequences.
Right.
Just from like a points perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was funny to see the podium of that race.
Oh, yeah.
You see Schumacher and Barrichello just not wanting to be there. They're not celebrating at all.
Yeah.
Like Schumacher himself said it was a hollow victory and it meant nothing.
Well, because
it's garbage.
You're racing 6 people.
The only one, Thiago, who finished third, you see him celebrating like crazy.
It was like he won the world title. Like for him, that was just
Apparently, he partied all through the night with his team.
I get it,
and had a fantastic time. But what I think this race really did, though, is F1 had been really trying, as you said, to push into the U.S. for years.
Yeah.
And I think this was a big detriment to F1 in the U.S. Because they had this was 2005. They had the 2006 race at Indianapolis. And then nothing in the U.S. from 2007 through 2011. Not until Circuit of the Americas comes back in Austin in 2012.
Yeah, and like that race there, it's taken time to build it up more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I looked at the attendance numbers of American Grand Prix, and like in 2005, there was only 100,000 attendees for the weekend. By comparison, at the last Circuit of the Americas last year, 430,000.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like, I don't understand how this happens. I guess, I don't understand how they let this happen.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's something that they learned from. It's just crazy though, because it's one of those things where like you enraged a whole fan base that you potentially could have had here.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to win back that trust. And I think most people can argue that what's turned it around in the U.S. is really Drive to Survive, because you have people who are interested in Formula One
because of
that show. Yeah. Because obviously motorsport, you think of like NASCAR, right? Like you don't think of Formula One here.
I think in the U.S., yeah, absolutely you do.
And Indy, right? Like Indy.
But to a much lesser.
Totally, absolutely. So I think it's good that it was able to kind of like regain that traction. And this is kind of like hopefully a memory that's left in the past until we, drudged it up and.
Yeah, exactly. But what's interesting is that because this is obviously different owners and different people running the FIA and Formula One.
Well, not the owners of the FIA. That's the governing body.
Sorry, those running the FIA. And back then, it was Bernie Ecclestone and Max Mosley who were Bernie Ecclestone basically owning Formula One, like the business side of it, and Max Mosley being the head of the FIA. And those two, for decades,
they did whatever they wanted.
Running it together, doing exactly what they want. And this race, from what I read, because I said I went a little bit down a bit of a rabbit hole in this race, is apparently this was the sort of the initial fracture between the two of them. Yeah. Because when Michelin came and said, we basically can't, our tires can't handle this, this race, a whole bunch of solutions were proposed. Yeah. So as you said, the chicane, they had proposed them driving through the pit each lap. They had proposed a speed limit for the Michelin drivers at that corner.
Yeah, like they tried to solution it, and I think like you obviously don't want to see that many teams withdraw, and like there's a lot of money and there's a lot of sponsors and there's a lot at stake, and for the FIA just to be like no, and to not be reasonable and work towards a resolution.
Now, interestingly, throughout the discussions of the options, from what I read, the chicane was the preferred solution.
Yeah.
10 out of the 11 teams agreed to it. There was one team that said, we will leave it to the FIA to decide.
Was it the Jordan team?
It was Ferrari.
Fascinating.
It was Ferrari, who was on the Bridgestone, who had not been performing that year, and didn't say yes or no.
Yeah.
They just said, we will let the FIA decide. And the FIA then said, no, we're not doing it.
I wonder if it had been anybody else other than Ferrari, if they would have had a different
could be
outcome. It's interesting though, because like it's one of those situations where I think that this was actually like a big turning point, because you now see teams really banding together in strength in numbers to try to drive change, right? Like you see team principals really trying to ensure, that they're all on the same page and that they're heard by the FIA.
Well, and that is one of the sort of conspiracy theories behind this as well.
I love a good conspiracy theory, yeah.
So as they were so called, the Grand Prix Manufacturers Association, they had banded together, and as you said, pushing to make changes in the sport and improve things for the teams and what have you. They had been trying to pressure Max Mosley to make changes and do stuff. What they're saying is, apparently this was his power play to say, I don't need you. I run this.
Yeah.
I can run a race with 3 teams. I don't need any of you.
How'd that work out for you, Max Mosley?
Yeah.
What you up to today?
Sitting on a yacht, probably.
Yeah. It's one of those things where like, I think you have those like legacy moments, right? Where it's like, that's what you're remembered by.
Yeah.
Like what's his face? Michael, it is so wrong. What's his name? Michael Massey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Massey.
That's his legacy, right? Like
this is so not right. Yeah.
It's one of those situations where like you could have, I think, an impeccable career. Not to say that he did, and then you make a call like this where it's clearly showing your bias, right? Like, yeah. I think that's the issue.
And it haunts you for generations to come.
Yeah.
And it's still talked about because it's described as the worst F1 race ever run.
Yeah. Well, because it's an embarrassment.
Exactly.
Really is what it is.
6 cars out of 22.
Well, and had this not happened, would there have been a different outcome for F1 like over here, right? Like would it have gained more traction? Would there be more races? Like today we're at 3 races in the US, 1 in Canada. Would there have been more? Like would it have, because it kind of like stalled out for a little bit.
Well, yeah, there was years with nothing, right?
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it would have been a big difference. But I think one of the problems you have is in the US, being such a large country physically or geographically, there were so many tracks that they wanted the US Grand Prix to run at.
Yeah.
And it changed so regularly, right? It wasn't until they decided to stay at Indianapolis for several years. But before that, Vegas, Dallas, I think there was one somewhere around Chicago.
Wasn't there one in New York? Did I hallucinate that?
I don't think so, but it's years and years and years ago, and it's not actually in New York City or anything.
No, like not
somewhere.
Manhattan. Yeah.
Wait, I think might have actually been in Jersey. I don't know. You have like the Spanish Grand Prix, you have the Italian Grand Prix.
Yeah.
You have these big
like iconic
races that they call the nation's race.
And I think they were thinking like it should work here because there is that fan base of motorsport enthusiasts.
Yeah.
But didn't happen.
Well, not just a fan base of a fan base of motorsport fans, but a strong motorsport legacy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They had been in the sport for years. There's lots of motorsport going on in the US. There are fantastic constructors. It's there. And it doesn't take hold.
Yep.
And I think this is one of the big reasons why.
So out of the 3 races that we have today, which one's your favorite? So Miami, Austin, Las Vegas.
That's tough because they're all very different.
Yeah, totally different. Yeah.
I like different things about each of them.
Okay.
So I think on a whole, I like Austin.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's a great track, and they've been going there for a long time now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's a solid track that has given us some great races.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Vegas races these last 2 years have been really strong.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the rest of
Vegas?
the Vegas weekend that they put on. I think it's takes away from the sport.
A bit too showy.
Yeah. It's a bit much, and I understand why they do it, but I feel like it takes away. But
my beef is the time that it's at. Because
that does not help.
No. Because it wouldn't be a far trip for us.
Yeah.
I would love to go to it, but like I wouldn't.
You'd be fast asleep.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't last.
No.
I absolutely wouldn't last.
Yeah. You'd be sitting there as they're screaming by, just
unconscious.
Not off. Yeah.
Yeah, like I would never make it. So that is my biggest beef is the time. I you know what? I don't mind the spectacle. I kind of like a spectacle every now and then. I think it makes it a little bit more interesting because you have some of those races that are just so rooted in tradition, and
yeah.
I mean it's different, right? Like I feel like it'd be weird if you went to Vegas and it wasn't
a spectacle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
I do think it's like a little bit weird how they like drive them over to like the Bellagio.
Right?
Like that just seems like that's a bit much.
Yeah.
Like it just makes it so much longer than it needs to be. But yeah, I'd say that one is my least favorite Vegas
yep.
of the three. I would say Austin is my favorite also.
Yeah.
I do like Miami though, because I think Miami, it's an interesting track. Like I feel like something always happens there.
Yeah.
Which I enjoy.
It's kind of like a street circuit, but not totally a street circuit.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, like it's a street circuit, but like not.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it doesn't know what it wants to be. But, and you know, it's like slippery.
But it makes for good races.
High speed corners. Yeah. Like I think it's good. So, but I just feel like, I don't know, something about Texas, right?
Well, that's exactly it, right? There's a reason that they still go there.
Yeah. It's a good race. I like it.
Everyone likes it. And I think the drivers like it too, right? And they love the fanfare. Who doesn't love a good brisket as you're, getting ready to drive?
I feel like they're not eating
brisket.
Yeah. Maybe they're having some tacos. Some excellent food in the Austin area.
Yeah, I know I would be.
I don't think you would fit in an F1 car.
Probably not.
So you could just eat all the food.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd be just fine. Do you have any other little tidbits of facts? You are at one with the research.
I did read that apparently TV sponsors from the U.S. demanded financial compensation.
I mean, I get it.
Because they put on such a horrible sporting event.
Because could you imagine if, like, Super Bowl and one of the teams didn't play?
Yeah.
And they were like, we're just going to keep all of your advertising money.
Now, apparently Michelin did offer refunds to fans.
Oh, really?
So Michelin paid out refunds.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's a weird race.
The shot of the start, though, is
epic.
It is one of the most interesting things you'll ever. If you haven't seen it, as you said, check it out on YouTube. It's
worth watching.
Very interesting to watch.
Well, even just to watch everybody
duck into the pits.
Like that is just it. Like the confusion.
Yeah.
Because obviously the crowd didn't anticipate this as an outcome.
Right.
Because I also imagine that they probably weren't attending quali and they probably didn't know what was happening. So you show up to a race that, you think you're going to see this exciting F1 race and you get to watch 6 cars just drive around.
And I mean, the 6 cars, it's like you've got 2 Ferraris.
Yeah.
And then you've got 2 Minardis and 2 Jordans who were last.
Yeah.
Right? Which is the big reason why I'm not sure which one of them decided to race first, whether it was Minardi or Jordan. But the other one only joined the race because they were like, there's only 6 cars. This is a points haul.
Yeah, totally.
And this is us moving from last place to second last to whatever third last, whatever it might have been.
And what's funny is, I guess they were concerned with the liability, but like some other team running the Michelins should have just like hopped on and just cruised around at like, mom speed. Just
lifted a lot at turn 13.
Just waving, little leisure cruise. But
it didn't happen.
Didn't happen. I would have loved to see that though. That would have made the race incredible. But anywho, my next question is, what city would you like to see an F1 race in?
I think Bernie Ecclestone's vision of a Grand Prix in Manhattan.
That would be pretty cool.
That would be exciting to watch.
You know what I think would also be exciting to watch? Disney World. Can you imagine? You could just like sit up in Dumbo and just watch F1 cars cruise by.
What an idea, right? Let's put that out there.
Right?
The Disneyland Grand Prix.
Yeah. I also think New Orleans would be fascinating, only because the cars would just disappear in the potholes.
Well, exactly. They wouldn't make it land a single lap.
No.
The Louisiana roads would chew them up.
Yeah, if you've never had the privilege of driving in Louisiana, it's some of the most intense roads ever because they don't maintain them. So it's just pothole after pothole after pothole.
That would be an exciting race, though.
It would be.
Yeah.
Cruising to the French Quarter. You could do like a parade route.
We're talking about only street circuits.
Are you going to have them drive around Talladega?
Just
in a circle?
Those left turns would really do something.
Yeah. I think some street circuits would just be interesting.
Yeah. Houston,
they could just cruise the loops.
How many loops can you do? They do this, but they don't remove the traffic.
No.
The traffic stays.
The race will take you
10
10 hours to complete. Yeah. Better not make it a Sunday. Yeah. So, I don't know. I think there's definitely some interesting street circuits that they could do. I also think it'd be really interesting to do one in like the Caribbean.
Yeah. Which country? Where are you thinking?
I mean, I would love to see Grand Cayman, but I don't think it's big enough.
Just go around the entire island 87 times.
But yeah, like it would be, I know that it's not really realistic, but it would be, I think, fun to see like some more rotation in the calendar. But I know that it's a lot to set up. I just think that like, as much as I like Monaco, it's like a boring race to watch.
Well, yeah, it really is. I think that's one of the big problems. And I think we'll see if the new design changes that makes the cars narrower.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll be able to overtake a little bit more.
Yeah. Like they're not going to get rid of Monaco because it's like the Kentucky Derby of F1. Like everyone wants to win that race. But there needs to be... They need to change something.
At least one actual overtake zone.
Yeah.
Something where something can happen.
Yeah, too much of it is just like you're just driving around in circles. And I think there's been a lot of that though, where quali is just so much more important at some of these tracks because overtaking is just so difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is unfortunate because it's just not a good race.
Well, it makes it boring for the fans, but also the drivers.
Yeah, there's no intense battles.
Yeah.
Anyway, so anything else to add about this race? I thought it was fascinating. I think it definitely changed the way that motorsport, F1, is run present day. Like, I think this is one of those foundational races where they had to tighten up rules and regulations based on the outcome of this. I think for the better.
Yeah.
I hope you all enjoyed this little scandalous walk through memory lane for F1. It's my understanding you have a race next week to chat about.
Yeah. Also filled with scandal.
Excellent. So stay tuned next week. Is there a race? Oh, Miami.
Miami.
Duh. We will be back next week to chat about Miami, and hopefully we see a Lewis win, maybe Oscar. I'm banking on Oscar.
Yeah, I think that's where you're.
All right.
That's where the safe money is.
That's where the safe money is. Yeah. We will see you next week. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Motorsport Podcast. Motorsport Podcast is a Vorbeck Media production. Follow us on Instagram at Motorsport Pod. You can listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or our YouTube page, Motorsport Pod. Bye.